I was good friends with Chris Bledsoe.
Yeah.
Chris Bledsoe is a famous abductee from North Carolina who had $20 million business. He and his son and 3 contractors have this encounter where there's like 14 UFOs in an hour. They're dropping down. There's in front of the road. There's an alien running and trying to grab on the back of the truck. They get home. There's aliens in the yard. There's aliens, small aliens, big aliens, and his world just came apart. He was a Pentecostal. Nobody would talk to him. He was ostracized. He sat in a room for 9 months, whatever. So I was good friends with this guy. I happened to be doing the citizens hearing thing, and I went to talk to him. And that's when I had the experience with the dog, with the bleeding dog, with the blood shooting out the neck. And it's kind of a long story. But anyway, so I knew him, and he phones me up one day. Or no, he emails me. And he said, I just want to let you know that I was told by the Guardians, he called them the Guardians, that the message is in the music. And I'm going, whatever, who cares? Like, I'm not into music, who cares? And he mentioned 2 songs. And this is how this thing drags you in. He mentioned 2 songs. One was Kashmir by Led Zeppelin, which I still have not listened to the whole song. I still, to this day, haven't. I've listened to parts of it and stuff. And he said that the message is in that one. And that's been used for a number of UFO. It was used for at least 2 UFO-related movies. It's in the movie. That one, but it was the second one he got me. He said, Neil Young, After the Gold Rush. And I said, Neil Young? Are you kidding me? Neil Young?
Yeah.
And I'm going, he's from Winnipeg. I'm from Winnipeg. Like, what's the chances? And I'm thinking, oh, that's pretty cool. So I checked the Neil Young one, and After the Gold Rush.
I saw the Silver Spaceships.
Yeah, and the whole song, if you look at the song, Dolly, a number of experiencers, just a pile of experiences. Smith, what's her first name? She did Gloria in the 70s. She sang it. There's been Thor. There's been maybe 5 musicians who are experiencers who have sang this song. But anyway, I looked at the song, and the song is basically the environmental message. It basically says, we're treating the world like a gold rush, and when the gold is gone, it's going to become a ghost town. And the silver seeds, the flying saucers, are going to come down and take the chosen ones to another planet. And now we identify the experiencers as the chosen ones. And they all talk about this rapture. A lot of experiencers, when you talk to them, will talk about this rapture. There's going to be this rapture, and these people are going to be taken. He said this in 1968. And when Dolly Parton, and Dolly Parton sings a song about abduction, Dolly Parton asked him, what's it mean? She was doing the song with Linda Ronstadt and somebody else. She said, what does it mean? Neil, what's the thing behind it? He said, I have no idea. I was totally stoned when I wrote it. I have no idea. Each verse may mean something different. So he said, no, I was stoned when I wrote the song. I have no idea what it means. But it was that dragged me into it. So then I started looking at it, and then I came across a book that was written by Michael Luckman in New York City. And he wrote a book called Alien Rock. And it has the connection to the alien thing. And it's 320 pages, and it goes through all the musicians, Elvis Presley's interest, just the whole litany of them. And I started looking in it, and I go like, wow. So I start looking at these different things, and I was more into the aspect of not so much how many musicians are interested, but why these musicians got involved with this thing. And I started picking up different bands and different things, and some of the major ones. Like you mentioned, Colin Andrews. I talked to Colin Andrews. Now, Colin Andrews, because he was a big lecturer on the world circuit, he would lecture all over the world. And he tells stories of 5 different bands. Renaissance was one, Yes was one, Moody Blues was one. All these bands that came to him and said, we're influenced. We're influenced by this, and we've got lyrics coming in here. And the Moody Blues was one of the key ones that he mentioned. And the Moody Blues had told him, and he said the Moody Blues came to him, Mike Pinder from the Moody Blues and the lead guitarist, and they said, we'd like to talk to you after your lecture. So he said, okay. So they go for dinner. And Colin Andrews says they're sitting there, and he says, you can tell they're not making this story up, because Pinder says something, and then the guitarist says, bang, boom, boom. They're telling this story together, and they're talking about before they were born, that they remember before they were born, and they were on a ship with some elder-type beings, and they were told, you're going to be musicians in this next lifetime, and you're going to put lyrics into your songs that will elevate the consciousness of the earth. And he said, tell them how we got back in the earth. Tell them how we came back in the earth. And so here you have this major band, sold 50 million records, and they were clearly abducted. The Moody Blues talk about their abduction in 1967. It's all over the internet about how they were coming from Manchester, a concert in Manchester, going into London, England. They were missing 3 hours time. And so he tells me that story. And the other one he told me that has been told by John Anderson, who was the lead for Yes. John Anderson told him the story, and John Anderson's been interviewed about UFOs numerous times and says, yes, all music and all art comes from the Pleiades. And he gets into this kind of stuff. And yes, he's had a lot of UFO experiences. But he told Colin Anderson, he's told 4 other people that I know personally. He's never told it on the record. But he said he was in Las Vegas doing a concert, and he was in Caesar's Palace in his room, and an alien came through the wall and gave him information. So here I have another guy, 50 million albums or whatever, and I started looking at these connections, and I got like some of the biggest. John Lennon is a prime example. Everybody knows John Lennon had a sighting in August of 1974, and he talks about, he's on video, and he's talking about how this thing goes, he's going down the East River, and he calls May Pang. She's in the shower. She comes out. She's naked. They're standing on the deck, and he said it was so close he could hit it with a rock. And his glasses weren't on, and he said he could still see it even without his glasses. And it was there, and it had big, huge marquee light bulbs on it, which I always bring up to people because people say, "Oh, you know, like they've got the lights." And I say, "Why do UFOs have lights on them?" So you can see them. You don't need big marquee light bulbs on the side of a craft to fly through outer space. It was there for John Lennon to see. So he sees this object, but then when May Pang starts telling the story, he puts it in an album, one of his albums in 1974. He puts this thing.
Strange days indeed.
I saw a UFO in New York, and nobody cares. And he puts it in, and he puts it on the cover of the album and stuff. Yeah. So he's into it. But when May Pang tells the story, she tells the story, and she says, we were standing there, and they were on the penthouse on the Dakota where they lived. And there was a stairway down to the balcony below them. And the people, she said, they were always on the balcony below them. And they would talk, they'd come out the balcony. She said they're both naked, they're standing there, and they're screaming and yelling. This goes on for about 10 minutes. And she's trying to take photographs with a camera, and none of the photographs turn out. And she says, during her interview, she says, and I wondered why those people on the balcony, they're always there. Why they didn't come out because we were yelling and screaming. And she said the other strange thing was I looked out over, and all the apartments were vacant. And a thought popped into her head. It's Friday night. They've all gone to the Hamptons. So we contacted her and we said, don't you think this is a little strange? Everybody in New York went to the Hamptons? And she said, yes, I realize it's strange. And what that is, it's called the Oz effect. And if you get people who are followed in a car, the UFO's behind the car, and they're racing, and they're trying to, and the thing comes up beside the car, and they're trying to go. I always stop and I say, hey, let me ask you a question. Is there anybody else on the road? And they'll always say the same thing. You know, that was the strangest part. There was nobody on the road. And then I say, is it a busy road? Oh yeah, the one was LA freeway. And all the cars just disappeared. And it was that's that Oz effect that May Pang is talking about, the fact that suddenly there was nobody there. It was like time stopped. And so she tells the story. So I go through the John Lennon abduction, and I start looking at them, and you basically have all the key musicians of the 20th century all have these, either a great fascination, and I even have UFO songs. I have songs that hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of UFO songs that people have, and then what I would do is I'd actually take the song and say, why did they do the UFO song? And then I would go back and find out that it had experiences as a child. I'd do the Google searches, and I started finding out that a lot of the major musicians are experiencers, and a great number of them are. So when I told Mike Luckman that I've got all these new cases, then he said, oh, I've got a bunch of new stuff, I'm going to write another book. So then he's going to write a second book on all the other musicians that were involved in this interest or experiences and that sort of stuff. And then he had a stroke and died. And so then I ended up being the guy with the music because I was the only one who was working on it. So then I said, okay, I'll finish my book and I'll do my book. But it's been written about a number of times, and it is a big thing. It's like Elvis Presley, the blue light. There was always this thing about aliens and blue light over the house when he was born, and he has an obsession with blue, and he has the sighting with his father. He describes the sighting with his father, and his hair, the guy who does his hair, his number of experiences with him, and he has all these UFO books and stuff. So you have like these major musicians, and you have another aspect to it. Like the other thing I got in when I did the music thing, I did the download thing. How many musicians get songs in dreams? For example, Let It Be. Mother Mary comes to me speaking words of wisdom, let it be, let it be. His mother came to him in a dream at a critical time in his life and said, it's okay, let it be, it'll be okay. That's where he gets the song from. The song Yesterday, the most played, produced song in the 20th century, came in a dream. And so I look at that kind of thing. So it's this idea that you're in a conscious environment where your left brain is running things, it's keeping you in the physical world, and then during a dream or something, you pop into this other world and you bring back stuff. So all musicians are right brain creative people, whereas the scientific people are left brain creative people. They don't have these inspirations, but musicians are on the edge, and a lot of musicians did psychedelic drugs, and that shuts down the left hemisphere, pops you into that sort of alternate non-local world, and they bring this stuff back. So I do all the songs songs that came in dreams, and I do all the songs that came in 5 minutes. I have a couple 150 songs.
What's that Guess Who song that they wrote? They have no recollection.
Well, the Guess Who song, that's from
American
American Woman, where this is the most bizarre, where it's instantaneous, where who's the head of the?
Is it Randy Bachman?
Not Randy Bachman. Burton Cummings. So Burton Cummings is telling the story, and I looked at Burton Cummings because that's the most famous band ever to come out of Winnipeg. So I say, I wonder if Burton Cummings was abducted. So I go, alien abduction, Burton Cummings, and boop, pops his Facebook page, and he's saying, you know, I'm 64 years old, and he's writing in caps. He's yelling. He's writing in caps. I'll do whatever I want. They're treating that Whitley Strieber. I know exactly how he feels, and he's being mistreated and stuff. And I'm going, like, nobody's gonna know who Whitley Strieber is, but we know who Whitley Strieber is. And I'm going, wow, he may have been abducted. He's talking about Whitley Strieber. Right. And then he tells the story about American Woman, which was 3 weeks on the top of the U.S. charts, biggest song sort of ever to come out of Canada. And he tells the story of how this happened. They're in Mississauga. They're between shows. He's behind stage buying records from some guy, and then Bachman breaks a string on his guitar. Bachman's fixing the string, and then he starts to play this riff as it starts, and he goes to the guy, I'll get the records later, and he goes running up and he sings American Woman. And they look out, and there's this kid, this is 1968, there's a kid with a handheld tape recorder. This is when they first came out. This kid's got the tape recorder up, and they realize this kid's going to bootleg the show. So they give a message to the manager to get the tape off that kid. So they get the tape off the kid, and then after the show, they're listening to the show, and the first song in the second set is American Woman. And they all look at each other and going, where'd that come from? And nobody remembered, they never wrote it, nobody remembered singing it, and if it hadn't been for the kid with the tape recorder, American Woman never would have existed. So it's a very weird thing when you start looking at where does music come from. Because most musicians, you're sitting there and you're waiting for an inspiration, you're waiting for something to come, and they're sitting there waiting for an inspiration to come, and that's basically how it's working. And there's even, I'm now going to do a thing on lucid dreaming. How many people can use lucid dreaming? If you can learn to lucid dream, you can actually go into the lucid dream and pick up songs. Right. And there's a guy actually here that has the Periods on Mars. He's the musician here, and he tells a story about getting this dream where he hears this guy sing a song or play a song, and he comes back and he reproduces the song. And a number of musicians will talk about this as well. And the difference between music and regular dreams is that in regular dreams it's all like crazy stuff and nothing makes sense or whatever. But in a dream, the music is not distorted. The music is exactly as it is. So they come back and they can recreate exactly what they heard. And you get to near-death experiences. You hear people, the famous Eben Alexander case, the guy from Harvard who has this near-death experience, he hears the music, and it's the music that pulls him out. So music is part of the universe. It's like mathematics. It's part of the universe. And these people are just tapping into this. The same as near-death, people near death or who are dying will hear music. And it's this thing, the music of the spheres. They're picking into this thing. It's part of the universe.